Welcome to Inside Aesthetics, the world's leading podcast for injectors and aesthetic businesses. I'm Dr. Jake Sloan, an aesthetic doctor with over 16 years experience in facial aesthetics.
And I'm David Siegel, an entrepreneur and business mentor with over 20 years of experience in our industry. Our podcasts are aimed at industry professionals, and any information or advice given is general in nature. You should consult with a healthcare provider before undergoing any treatment.
You can also subscribe to us on Patreon for on-demand content for injectable and business education. We are recording on the 12th of March, and there is lots of volatility in the economy, especially coming from the United States, which is topical to our topic of discussion today.
Yeah.
Your high-level view before we dive into our guest and introduce her?
Well, things always need to get better, get worse before they get better. So, that, it's always darkest before dawn kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of systems that are being shaken up at the moment, and it's going to impact us globally because we are a globally connected community. Especially in the Western world. So I think we're going to see some big changes. We'll meet again in 6 months and see whether those changes were good or bad. But I definitely think, the way we were heading, debt, all these kinds of things, probably not ideal long-term for us. So I think changes need to come, but sometimes there's going to be short-term pain before things get better, or it could be a complete disaster. But either way, it's going to be an interesting ride, and it's going to be very, very interesting to watch it unfold.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We may have our first recession in Australia for at least 30 years.
Unless they change the definition of what a recession is. That's something that our politicians do as well. They change the definition of things, so they don't call them that anymore. So that's always interesting too.
Anyway, happy days.
Happy days, yes.
Good way of starting a podcast. Yeah. So do you want to introduce our famous guest?
Yeah, so today we're joined by the one and only Marilyn Capote. I know it's a Spanish word, Marilyn, so we're doing our best with our very brutal Australian accent.
You got it.
And so you're located in the United States. Obviously, we came into contact through our mutual friend, Dr. Felix Bertram. You've been quite involved with some of the things he's been doing with the Inner Circle over in Switzerland. And you're kind of similar to me in some ways in terms of not medical, but been involved in the industry for a long time, owned and run successful clinics. I believe you still own a clinic. But in recent years, you're moving more into helping other people with their businesses and sort of doing keynote speaking on the business side of aesthetics. So we wanted to find out all about you, your journey, what your thoughts are on the industry, and I guess maybe educate some of our listeners with some of your pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, thank you, Jake and David, for having me over. You did a great job with that last name. Yes, I'm from Puerto Rico originally. My first language is Spanish. Yes, we got to know each other because of Felix. Felix is not only a great friend, he's a wonderful mentor. It's just impossible to talk to someone like that and not pick up pearls here and there and continue to grow. I started into the aesthetics medicine, I want to say a little bit over 20 years ago, when our industry was really into this really infantile steps. My family had internal medicine businesses, and I used to work front office for them. And by having a passion on the aesthetics all my life, and I want to say mainly more on bringing out the beauty on people, I could see that they would hire doctors and hire nurses and just like run the clinic. And I said, well, you know what? Maybe I can do that too. So I just decided to hire some doctors, decided to hire some nurses, and being very naive and being a go-getter that I guess I am from that last name, then we just decided to, I say we, I don't know, always count with the team, but decided to go in there. I had something very clear. I knew that I had that ability to convince people, or at least let them see that things could get better, let them see the beauty that they had within. And with that in one hand, a phone in another, and some doctors helping out, we just went out on that journey, and it grew very fast. I remember purchasing some lasers by faith, I want to say, back when Thermage was an amazing laser, and Fraxel was like amazing as well. So we decided to bring those over and start treating patients and start growing. And then before we knew it, we were a team that grew very fast. And I discovered the good and the ugly of this whole aesthetics, what it has to do with people. I mean, it's beautiful when you deal with people, and it can also be very ugly when you deal with people, because it always comes down to that.
And what year was that when you jumped in and decided to purchase a clinic and start running it?
So that was in 2009. I just went full blown into that. I had started before in something smaller, but when I said, okay, this needs to start immediately as it is, was in 2009. We already had decided to hire some doctors, and then from there, just take it. I remember we started in a very small room, and then it started to expand. And I would say if I could only just get them at hello. And back then I would use the vouchers a lot. I don't know if you guys use coupons, but back then, vouchers were they were just starting in America. And my thought was, I have to use this because I need to get the people at least to come in. I've always thought of having them right at hello. I know that I can get them through the door. I can convert these people into amazing patients. It's all about that journey. And that's exactly what I did. I remember winning Best of Groupon like 4 years in a row. And those extra checks that would come in were just amazing to help the clinic and keep us expanding. Because I knew that if they would just come in, we would be able to convert them into patients and convert them into something that would be loyal. So we started then doing memberships when memberships weren't even a thing back then, and then creating those patients to come back. And then I said, okay, they're coming now for the cookie cutter process, which is the fillers and the talks. Now I need to make sure that they come in for other treatments as well. So that's how all that came about. And then just one door started opening another, and learning with a lot of mistakes, a lot of, what happens when you learn by yourself. But creating something amazing. I think that most importantly, always realizing that it was a fire and a passion that I had inside, because when things did not go right, when all hell started breaking loose, then it was that extra calling that I felt inside of me that help me continue to move towards that.
Okay, so maybe let's rewind a few steps. So you opened your first clinic in 2009. You said your family had like a general medicine practice. So
internal medicine. Yeah,
internal medicine. So let's go back further than that. So like, obviously you grew up in Puerto Rico, you migrated to the United States. And so what was your education process like? Like, where were you going in life, and how did you kind of stumble into aesthetics? Because I think we're missing a few pieces of the puzzle here. So can you just fill in those gaps a little bit for us?
Yes, so background in journalism in Puerto Rico. That's what I studied. I've also been full-time in ministry, as far as like helping and connected with ministries that would help constantly women or people. So very active in that as well. Then decided to move to the United States. And then my family had practices here in Arizona. And from Orlando, Florida, I decided to move to Arizona. And that's kind of like the connection started. When I moved to Arizona, everything's new for me. So I said, hey, can I just work at the front office? I love working with people. And they said, yeah, well, why don't you? So started working at the front office with them. And that's when I saw that whole dynamic going through. So by seeing the representatives come in and seeing the patients come in and seeing all these other doctors joining us and all the other things that we could do in a practice, I said, you know what? This would be really great if we could just do a practice, not a spa, because I don't like the fluff too much, but I do like something that would bring results. So why don't we create something medical, but medical that has to do with aesthetics?
Right.
So that's what I decided to do.
Okay. And so, but what was your introduction to aesthetic medicine? Like, how did you even know? Were you getting treatments at that time? Obviously, it's big in South America. But what was that like? Where was the industry at that point in Arizona?
It is very, very well known in Puerto Rico as well. I think being in journalism and studying that, I always had a passion for the aesthetics. I think that's where everything would grow. But basically, having that love for seeing that beauty within other people, knowing that the possibility of not only stay at the surface, but bring out that beauty in other people as well. When I get to Arizona, I go visit a plastic surgeon with one of my friends. And when I walked into his practice, I said, hey, wait a minute, I think I can do this to the level that he was presenting at. She was there for surgeries. I said, but we could do kind of like this setting that we see right here, maybe with some doctors, but then do it for things that would not be as aggressive or as, how do you say that in English? For treatments that would be non-invasive. That's the word, non-invasive. So we could do this for a non-invasive and still achieve changes with patients.
Okay.
And that's what that light bulb turned on.
Okay. And you don't have to answer this, but were you already a patient at that point? Were you sort of hooked?
100%, of course. Yeah. Yes. So in Latin America or in the Caribbean where I'm from, I think they worship bodies, and it's very important the way you look. So definitely it's part of our culture. So I walk into this already with that area awakened in me. Yes.
Right.
And where did you develop your passion and appetite for business acumen? Because you're a journalist, maybe a family practice, but it's a little bit different. And you sort of seem quite quickly to decide, I can do this better. I'm going to open a clinic. I'm going to shake things up. So a lot of people don't have that drive. So where does that come from?
That's a good question. I think sometimes it's a lot. You're very naive at the beginning. Things I thought they were going to be so simple, and they're not simple. They're not simple to this day. After 20 years of doing, and working with people, they're not simple. Especially when we see the industry's changing so much. They're never going to be simple. But I guess there's always something that I've had that makes me think, I want to do this. Let's focus and let's go to it. And that was the same spirit that I had back then. Was I in for a surprise? Well, yeah, I was in for a huge surprise, but I guess that's what always has set me apart. When I put my mind towards something, I want to give it all to see how much we can get from that.
Okay. So where did you find these doctors? Because the industry was really in its infancy. I mean, I know here in Australia, because we got involved in the industry around a similar time, and there weren't that many aesthetic practitioners, particularly here in Australia. It was still very secretive. People weren't as open about getting procedures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There weren't many people, whether they be doctors or nurses, who realized this was potentially a career for them. So just walk us through that a little bit. Where are you finding these people? How are you luring them into your practice? What was the vision at that point?
So we had a PA in the practice that gave me a lot of information, said that he had a friend who was actually in the aesthetics industry. And he was very, very interested in the way that they were doing it, all. So I had a meeting with this doctor and I started asking him a lot of questions. And he told me that, it was possible to get a doctor who would be this expertise. It didn't have to be a plastic surgeon back then. He's a medical director, and put me in connections with some reps. Now, I would say that the reps really did the magic. And when I say reps, I got to give it to the reps. I don't know in Australia, but if you develop a good relationship with a rep, they can give you really good information. They've been in the industry for a very long time. And I remember back then, the reps for several products just sat down with me and gave me, listen, this is what you could do. These are different nurses that we know that are seeking for, a job at Injectors. This is different places that you can actually find out where you can get medical aesthetics. And this is how you can create a team of maybe 3 and then just start. And as I said, I was answering the phones and booking patients to come in. I was doing consultations when they came in. Now, I knew that I could do consultations. I knew consultations to get good treatments, at least on the basics, until we got them into professionals. And that's how that started to grow. So I've always said that when you are connected to someone who knows obviously more than you, but it's in the industry for longer than you, and these reps would really help a lot. So that's how it happened in my experience.
So you sound like the classic do it all kind of owner. You're answering the phone, you're running the wages and paying everyone and probably the floors. And was that your life for a couple of years until you maybe found your feet and could expand and reinvest?
So I've always believed in developing leaderships. So I knew that I couldn't do it all. I brought this from ministry. I knew that if I was able to duplicate myself, the sooner and the faster I would be able to do that and inspire them and tell them what to do, then that would have been better for me. I've always had in my mind to expand and keep growing. So I started with a team of 3. And yes, I was answering the phones at the beginning. And yes, I was doing the consultations, but not for long. So I would hold these meetings and make sure that I would teach the team on how to do that. But for some reason, that's the moment that I remember the most when you said, well, let's take it back. I take it back to those moments when I was, doing it all, answering the phone calls and doing the consultations and maybe paying them and buying the products and doing all that chaos that you tend to do at the beginning. Yes. But you learn a lot. So, I mean, you can do it all. I've always said, you can do it all. They ask me, can you do it all? I said, you can do it all. But the answer to that would be, do you really want to do it all? It's not sustainable. I mean, I'm sure you guys can do it all. But is it sustainable? It's not sustainable. So the faster you are able to duplicate yourself into a good team that can grab that vision and carry it, I mean, the better off you'll be to be able to do what you've been called to do, which is to expand if that's in your case.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I started my first clinic in Double Bay back in about 2006, I remember carrying in the furniture, painting the walls, setting up the computer system, paying wages. I was doing consults for the doctors as well. So that's how I kind of started.
Were you?
Yeah, I started to develop a lot of knowledge of treatments. And that's kind of why not many business people like you and I have the understanding, even though we don't do the procedures, have a good understanding of what's actually involved. So a lot of your story
yes,
with me. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you developed this
I mean, yeah, we didn't know really what we were doing, but we thought we did. So we did it with a lot of passion. You know, you just gave it all. You're like, oh, let's not let me call this doctor. Oh, let's wait. Hold on one moment. Yeah, that also started to develop me and be able to consult correctly. And I train that also with the team. I don't only train them on how to close a sale, but also how to connect more inside. Maybe some things that come natural. I don't know. Maybe for you, David, when you were doing it all back then, some things came natural of connecting with people. I think you do. I mean, you guys have an amazing podcast. You have the ability of connecting with people. So all that comes out when you're talking to the patient, especially in the aesthetics. They're not coming in sick. They're coming they have an idea of how they want to look, how they want to feel. So the importance of connecting to that. Not only about that sale, like I said, but about that journey that's going to mean to get those changes. That's really what they're looking for.
Yeah. Now, maybe if we pivot away from the clinic just for a sec, because, you know, we got connected to you through Felix for your business mentorship and your other business. So when did that start? Like how long into this did you think, you know what, I've actually got a gift to give back to teach people how to do this stuff? When did that start?
So I've always been in ministry, very active in ministry, anywhere from ministry to help women, to help community, to help the minorities, comes very natural to me. In reality, I have a passion for people. I have to be sincere. I have a passion for people. And I see a passion because, like I said at the beginning, people can always be the problem and people can always be the solution. And they come with situations. Everybody has a situation. But I believe that I have the ability to connect inside and see what I can bring out on that person that would be good, that had come back to bite me in the butt. Heck yeah, it's part of it as well. But I guess you just focus on the sowing and not so much on what you're going to reap when you talk about people. So I always knew, I've always had that love and that passion for it. And doors started opening. Connections just started opening. You meet one person here, one person there, and all of a sudden doors started opening and you get that platform to be able to share, but get the platform to share something with substance, not so much that step 1, step 2, and step 3 that people are going to forget so quickly. Also, not so much only motivation, because motivation, I've always said, it just makes you really excited and then you forget, but much more inspiration and leaving something that would be of substance for when those hard times come, because they're going to come in business, they're going to come in our lives. So when they come, we are able to develop that resilience and apply these things to see how we manage ourselves out of that. You just talked about the economy and how things look that they're changing for your place, and things look like how they're going to change over here as well. Everything's a constant change, but the reality is that all these different crises that come through our lives. I remember talking to my grandfather one time, and he was saying about the crisis that he was going through, or born in 1899 or something, and how he was able to come out of that. So I believe that there's situations that are going to happen to us. There's situations that are going to happen to us pretty bad. Not always we're going to have them under control, but how we get out of these situations, how do we develop that resilience? Because we're going to encounter them. So how can we step out of that and continue? My story it's not all a good story. After opening that business, I think I could talk a little bit about losing all of my employees in one day. Why? Because that was a business that I had a silent investor come in with me and join in. And when things did not go the right way, it was a mess. So I lost all of my employees in one single day, and I had to start over again from scratch with the same, I want to say recipe, right? With the same thing that I knew that to establish it from scratch. So just kind of like going with the same vision, the same passion, and a whole lot of wanting to do this. So that's why I keep saying, if you don't have something that calls you towards this industry is hard. If you don't have something that calls you in, that inspiration of wanting to open because they're opening here and there, and that's coming, and everybody wants to own a medical aesthetics practice. And I think it's amazing. It's great that we can expand. I've always said there's room for everybody. But what I mean is, if you're not called and drawn because there's something bigger calling you, I don't think it's going to be sustainable. It won't last.
Yeah. I agree. There are a lot of people that are drawn to the industry for the wrong reasons, whether it be money or they have this idea that it's going to make them famous on social media.
It's easy. Yeah.
A lot of glamour. Then
a lot of glamour.
Yeah.
Right.
When they realize it's difficult, then sometimes they might not be able to have the staying power because there's no passion there. And that's when you see a lot of people kind of packing up and going somewhere else. So the premise for this discussion when we were speaking on the phone, Marilyn, was this concept of getting back to basics, because the industry has been moving at such a rapid pace for such a long time. And by that, I mean number of competitors, number of practitioners, whether they be doctors or nurses, just expanding exponentially, right? The number of patients that are now interested and are actively participating in this industry and undergoing treatments is increased significantly. Number of products and techniques and treatment modalities, whether it be injectables, whether it be devices. You know, we've got things like exosomes now, polynucleotides, and, you know,
I love it.
Regenerative health's knocking on the door as well. So I think what, you know, what we wanted to talk about in this discussion was getting back to basics from a business perspective, from treatment modality perspective, and focusing on the core skills. So let's kind of refocus our discussion there, because you spend a lot of your time helping other businesses now while you still actively have your own clinic.
Maybe just to, I guess, reference my question right at the start to David about the economy. Can you say in a couple of bullet points your take on where we're at? It's so volatile. Obviously, things are changing literally half an hour with new executive orders and new things. And we've got wars going on. So it is very volatile. But how would you package where we are right now before we get into the business strategy?
So every time something changes, it leaves kind of like moving the ground. And I believe that the situation with so many changes now is as fast, that we're living so fast. I mean, I want things fast as well. So the faster things go, the faster everything around us become, and the less stable it is. So we're seeing that. I also believe that as things change so much, we get resilience to change as well. I mean, you get a little bit of the stamina when you see things changing around so much. You start developing that ability to be able to coping with change and coping fast. However, I do think that those newer ones that have not had the experience to be able to cope with the changes are not going to be able to survive. It's very sad what's happening, not only in America, it's all over the world. And I see it going so fast. And yes, my friends, it's not going to go any slower. It's actually going to go faster now, not only with the AI, but everything else that's coming in. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I think this is amazing. It gives us amazing opportunity to advance, but it also it's going to take us faster in this merry-go-round of what's happening. So it's amazing times, but it's time to buckle up and get with the season. And yes, go back to the basics. So what would be the basics, I guess, would be the next question, right? So if we talk about patients and everything that has been going around and changing, we cannot forget what the patient is really coming to us, to the clinic. So going back to the patients would be remembering what they're coming in for. So not only doing that cookie cutter treatments, like I said at the beginning, but making sure that the patient and our patient understands that their goal is to look younger and remain fresher. And there's so many other things that we can establish now and do to be able to achieve that. I love the podcast that you guys did on exosomes. It was so interesting. That's coming with a lot of force also here to United States. And I see everything is going to be about that quality of the skin. So not so much about volume and not so much about freezing the faces, but it's all going to be now about that quality of the skin and the trends, not focus so much on the trends that they come and go, but focus on things that work and things that are going to deliver that look for that patient. So those would be going back to the basics as far as patients. As far as team members go, going back to the basics would be, as I also said, not only train them on sales, but training on that connection with the patient. I think sometimes we're so focused on goals, we forget how to treat the patient on one-on-one level. Other times we're so focused on treating the patient well, having the patient understand the brand and having the patient feel amazing when he comes into the practice, that we forget how is that connection to be able to get them in those treatment plans that, believe it or not, I mean, it's sales. It is the medical aesthetics industry, but it's a sales industry. And we have to be clear about that. It's also sales. So having that perfect balance, it's going to take us to go back and re-examine again. Maybe take a look at those practices who's been going on for years now. What are they doing correctly? What's their mixture of having those patients stay with them and remain with them for so many years? Those are things that would be good to examine, and not so much of what's the latest here, what's latest there, but let's focus a lot more on what things we could do to mimic these other practices that have been there for so many years, that they're in institutions by now.
I know that you've lectured internationally and you've done Inner Circle. You're going to Monaco, I think, to lecture. Do you think that the challenges in business are different in America, or are they the same from the people that you speak to?
I think the challenges are the same. If we talk about business, the challenges in business are going to be exactly the same for everybody because of the changes, like I said. I believe that with patients, the paths are going to change. Right now, I'm going to be in Brazil in 3 weeks. And I know we're going to be talking about completely different things when you go to consultations with the patients. Culture-wise is different. But how the patient feels is exactly the same. So they're seeking maybe something that'll be in a different area. Maybe they're focused a lot more on the body and maybe the volumes and the way they look. It's a little bit different than the modalities that are here in America, but that feeling is going to be the same. So, and for example, in summer, I'll be in Asia. I cannot wait to go to Asia because I know that things are so completely different over there as far as the treatments that they're using. But when it comes down to those systems that we established, those systems will never change. So they need to be solid because those are the ones that are going to hold us together when those changes around us come and happen.
Yeah. I mean, what strikes me when I go to the American conferences and I sometimes dip into the business tracks, and I did a talk about the podcast in one of them, and they're very heavily focused, obviously, on marketing and funnels and digital marketing, all that kind of stuff, but also sort of KPIs and sort of the customer journey. And it's very, very, in a way, sales driven, sort of like trying to sort of latch on to every opportunity. And I don't always know if that works in other cultures. Like in Asia, for example, it might be seen as a bit pushy to kind of take that tact. So I wonder if you've noticed any cultural change of how the Americans like it and how other people around the world like it.
Yeah, definitely it's going to be that change. I would say that Latin America is a lot more aggressive even than America.
Oh, right.
And yes, like you said, pushy. The thing with these conferences, there's so many conferences. I think that it's very confusing. In a way, look at the positive. I see it gives an opportunity to whoever's close to just choose. We didn't have as many conferences in the past, but there's so many right now. And like you said, they focus it depending on whatever they want to for that season. I think you guys should come up with a conference. I really do. I really think you guys should come with something with 3 days that you can have and give something of substance. You both have so much to give. I really think that you guys should do something like that. But going back to your question, that style is going to change. So going back to the basics, let's consult this patient. Remember, yes, we're on sales. We're in the sales industry, but the patient is really coming to see results. So let's consult this patient based on this patient needs, and let's guide them towards those results. When we do that, and when we do that beautifully, it doesn't even sound like we're trying to sell them, although we are. So that's just that balance that we have to have as providers and being in this
what
industry.
What are your comments on sort of the American tact and maybe what you've seen elsewhere? Do you think that some things we're doing badly here in Australia? Do you think we could do more of that? Not aggressive, but a little bit more direct.
I would love to hear.
It's interesting because, as you said, every culture around the world is going to have a slightly different take and a different way of communicating. So I think the underlying principle is the same. It just depends on how we get to the outcome. So if we get back to first principles,
exactly,
getting back to basics, it's about, as you said, establishing connection with that patient, because people make decisions based on emotion and then they'll justify it with logic, right? So they're coming to you because they feel a certain way, they want to achieve a certain outcome. And so being able to build rapport, understanding how that patient communicates. Are they someone that's high detail? Do they need to know every single little detail about that treatment, the procedure? They basically want to, they're the sort of people that will buy a new item from a store and they'll read the instruction manual from beginning to end. That's going to be a different type of approach to the person like me who just goes, I'll just have a go and figure it out, and maybe I'll electrocute myself, or maybe I'll figure it out.
That's me.
You're going to have different types of people. So as the person that's the service provider, you need to be able to firstly identify what type of personality is this and adapt your communication style so that you can then engage in a meaningful transfer of information. Because if you can't establish that rapport, then it doesn't really matter what you say. The patient's not really absorbing what you're saying, right? So that's kind of the first thing.
Yes.
Is being a good communicator and understanding it's your job to adapt your communication style so that you can then open lines of communication. And so different.
Yes, and
Sorry. Go on.
no, go ahead. I was just so inspired for what you said.
Oh, okay.
And this is the thing with the KPIs and everything, like Jake was saying. There's amazing programs in the computers for that, which is, great. You just need to kind of learn how those programs work, and that can pull up the report, and there you go. But what David just explained, you need to be able to, like my granddaughter would say, you need to read the room. So you need to make sure that when this patient comes in, everything's going to be different. People are different. Even in America, I get so many different patients. There's one practice. We have several practices. There's one practice that has a lot of Asians, you guys. Like I would have never thought. It's beautiful. But then the way that we consult these patients, because it's so cultural, like you just said, everybody's different, right? And in America, I don't know, in Australia, you probably get a lot from different cultures as well. So you need to have that ability to make sure that you're connecting with that patient, you're guiding that patient the right way, and that you're reading in here. Like I always say, it's not so much about here, it's in here. So I think we should teach a little bit more on that. I think it's an approach that you can teach. I don't think that everybody was just born with it, but I do know that you can teach that as well as you teach the importance of the KPIs that you could just get on reports. There's some things that your computer can do for you, but there's some other things that you can't really, you just have to develop it. You need to build them. You need to teach them. You need to talk about it and take your team towards that way so they can connect with that patient. And then that creates your brand, that creates your style and your practice. And then one patient brings another and another, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. And sort of continue on from what you were saying is that, sales. And I think that maybe we need to, well, from my perspective, is that I think sales is got very negative connotations. We think that we're like, trying to be pushy.
I agree.
And tell someone that they need something that they don't. So maybe let's drop the word sales from the vernacular for a moment and just sort of say, well, people have come to you or your practice for a reason. And it's your job to be able to educate them and tell them why it is that you and your team are going to be able to provide them with that need. If you can do that successfully and make that person feel like they trust you and like you, then the sale will come. Right. So, but it's about changing the paradigm so that it's actually making someone feel safe, understanding what it is they need, and then educating. Because the sale and the money come as a byproduct. That's a secondary issue. If you're focused on the money, if you're focused on closing that sale or getting that, that 10 mil treatment or that full facial rejuvenation plan, it's like chasing a mirage. It'll evade you, and it's because you're chasing the wrong thing. You're chasing happy patients.
Yes.
You're chasing happy patients, and you're chasing good outcomes that are safe and give them what they want. If you achieve that, so it starts with communication first, open channels of communication because you've built good rapport, you've taken the time to understand the patient. Then it's about educating the patient. If you can do those things and do them consistently, the sales will appear and the patients will come back. And so I think it's just about changing from my perspective, just changing the mindset. And also, as you said at the beginning, Marilyn, being passionate, because most communication doesn't happen through the words. It happens through the tonality, the body language, energy.
100%. Yeah, it's all.
So if you're just there for a paycheck, patients will feel that.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my high level view on it. And culturally, there's going to be differences. Everywhere you go around the world, people will be more pushy about it. People will be more reserved. But at the end of the day, you need to be adaptable. So if you're adaptable, you're a good communicator and you're passionate, success will come.
So my question to Marilyn is, how do you teach that to someone? Because I've always said, and I think David agrees, I'm sure you agree, you can teach skill, but you can't teach personality, really. So what do you do with that?
I've always thought of not hiring employees, but just hiring leaders. So I think it just has to start when we hire. Now, I can't tell you that I haven't hired the wrong people. I think we all have. After that honeymoon phase, all of a sudden it's like, okay, who is this person, right? But it is important to hire someone that's hungry, someone that gets your vision and it's hungry as you are to make sure that whatever you establish with that same passion, they're able to pick up on it and then just roll with it. And then when David comes along and he starts training, with his amazing personality, he just said he inspired me. I want to do exactly what he's saying. So it has a lot to do with that. So when we work with people, we want to make sure that we find a tribe, una tribu, that is able to pick up on that and carry that vision that same way and make sure that they're hungry. Because if they're hungry, there's some things that you said that some things are going to be harder to teach, is what I would say, to that person who's hungry. But if the person is not hungry, you just hit it right on the head. You cannot teach someone who's not interested, who is not hungry. who does not have a higher passion for something that, although it's going to change, they're in it, and they're in it for the long run because there's something bigger than you that calls them in to do it. So it's going to start from that hiring process, I would say, when you build a team. If they're hungry, I believe that those steps could be trained. Yeah.
So
you can inspire someone and you can change them like that.
Yeah. How do you run your interview process or your screening process? Because like you said, someone can be all smiley and happy and lovely and then,
yes.
and then get in the door and suddenly realize it's a nightmare. So do you have any sort of hot tips on how to screen people better in the interview process?
Yes, I do. I try to do multiple. I have my manager would actually meet. She's worked with me for a long time, so she's able to get these resumes and know kind of like what we're looking for. So and then I usually won't get the person in until that third interview. So if that third interview, they've seen that that person already has a passion, that person already has that hunger, like we just said, that person has had some sort of experience as well, then and they think it's a fit of what we like our brand to be, then I would go ahead and meet that person. And I'd like to ask deeper questions that would allow me to understand how this person processes mindset. How is the mindset of the person? How do they process thoughts and situations that are not going to be, easy situations? And that's going to give you a good idea of what a good team member should be. Does this person have leadership traits? Is this person hungry, like I said? So those are questions that are going to be good because I don't think anybody wants to hire for the short. It's too much that you have to teach and pour into a person to all of a sudden just realize that it's not the right person for your team. So how do I do it? I like to ask those other questions and like to see if the person is hungry, the person is able to carry a vision, and if the person has traits for leadership. I think those would be the three for me.
Yeah, I've always remembered a quote from David. He's like, I hire, what was it? You hire slowly and you fire quick.
Yeah. You remember what?
Yeah. Which is fair.
You hire them slowly and then fire them quickly. Well, I've been guilty of not firing them that quickly, right? I think we all have, but you just keep hoping. And another thing about being so good about retention, you're trained on retaining the patients, converting the patients. And you want to do that sometimes with a team member that's usually not giving you what you need. And you're like so focused on retaining and converting, and it's really hurting you. So those are good lessons that I've learned along the way. Sometimes this is like David said, you have to hire them slowly and then fire them very quickly. I have a good friend, his name is Felix. He also says that.
Yeah. Well, I get, the danger is that if you have someone in your team that's not meant to be there, then they're actually damaging your business. They could be poisoning the culture, affecting other people.
Poisoning the team. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I always think they're not there for free. They're there to collect a salary or a wage or a commission. And so
right.
I think it's sometimes people feel guilty if they have to let someone go from their business, but it is what it is. It is a business, and yes, you want to have relationships with the people that work with you, but at the end of the day, if they're not adding, then they're subtracting, and you have to think about the greater good. If someone's dragging down your business, affecting patient retention, affecting the harmony of the team, then that one person is then robbing everyone else of a good experience in a safe working environment.
Yes. One of the things that we do is that I have no tolerance at all. I would work for someone who has a good heart. I always said that if they're multiple and they're hungry, we would work with them. I rather a good heart 1,000 times than a lot of experience. But one thing that I do draw the line would be for gossip. I believe that gossip is very infectious, and there's just no ground for that at all. So very strict about that. I also, maybe someone is listening and maybe that's not their situation. Maybe their situation is that they have the team that is just there, is just stagnant. I've also always thought that it's important to kind of like trim and sometimes some branches in our tree of our business, if we can call it that way, because that's kind of like the way it is. An umbrella, it's like a tree. I see it with different branches and departments. Sometimes we need to start cutting things that not necessarily are bad, but things that are just there and holds the whole picture from growing. And when you talk to entrepreneurs, they usually have that gift. I want to say they usually do. They're just afraid to tap into it. But it is extremely important that they're able to tap into that gift and know that sometimes you don't only have to cut positions and people away because they're damaging, so obviously. sometimes they're just so stagnant that they're not helping you grow. I did do some study on you, David, and you do work with little trees, with bonsais, correct? I don't know if that's like the dynamic that you do with the trees, but in business there's a lot of comparatives that you could do with this tree and businesses and entrepreneurs, and I believe everything. And sometimes you just have to. You have to be very delicate to the way that you grow, to what the purpose is. So that's something for entrepreneurs to think about.
That's analogy.
Yeah, I do like that analogy. Give us a flavor of where American aesthetic practitioners are right now, and obviously the success of their business. Because we've spoken a lot about the Australian sort of perspective, and David does have international clients. But what are people saying on the ground? Are they feeling the pinch? Are things okay? Are they worried? Are they happy? Where are we?
There's a mixture. There's going to be a mixture of all, because so many new businesses have opened, right? So you can see that the newer ones are really going through what you just said. They're really feeling that pinch. However, I've been amazed because the institutions, the ones that have been there for a very long time, are feeling it, but they're feeling it a little bit less. Why? Because of the loyalty of these patients that they have been able to establish. Specifically in this state of Arizona, we have a lot of patients that are what we call snowbirds. So as you know, when it gets really cold in other places, they come over here. So they're here usually like 6 months. It gets very, very hot, extremely hot in this desert, like 120 degrees. I don't know how to say it in other, but like 120 degrees. You can literally fry an egg on the street. Yeah. So almost nobody wants to be close in that. Although us here as the ones that we live, we don't go outside that much. We stay inside all the time. But people that's coming over here, they don't do it as much. So when we talk about the aesthetics, for us, a certain amount of time in the year that we get to be very, very busy. And then there's like this dry season during those months. And you really have to stay creative. So if you are one of those newer businesses that you're just opening up for, you can only take this and stretch it so much. When that slow season comes over, it might be a little tough. What I can say to them would be, try to call back all these other patients. Try during this time that you have all the patients coming in, make this referral program where you can maybe get the locals and the basics to at least come back during the summertime, so they can hold you up while that snowbird season comes over again. What modality are we seeing in the United States? Like I said, the quality of the skin, we're not seeing so much volume. I can tell you that over here, people are really starting to step away a little bit more from fillers. They're going much more into biostimulators. A lot of longevity, though. I've seen some clinics come up with that. I cannot tell you that in the area that I am, that's all you're seeing. I've seen some, but not as many as I've seen in other states. I have seen a lot more focus on those exosomes and the biostimulators, and not so much volume, but so much the quality of the skin and that glass skin look, like they say. So that's what we hear more and more of people wanting to achieve that. And obviously the body needs to look tight, and it needs to look as good as we can. So a lot of procedures for that as well.
It's pretty similar to him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Australia and America
is it
very similar.
Is it good?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're maybe slightly watered down version. We're not maybe so extreme in certain things, but I think very similar. To be honest with you, this is a trend that's happening right around the world, but definitely seeing a lot of similarities with what you're saying here in Australia. So how do businesses adapt themselves to that? Do you think there's a lot of re-education that needs to be done? Is it changing your marketing strategies, the way you're communicating with the patients?
I think the patient, staying open to the patients, because David, the patients are going to come in, and Jake, the patients are going to come in, and believe it or not, sometimes they sound almost like they know a lot more than what you do as a professional. Sometimes it happens like that. So I guess staying open and listening to that patient. And after you listen, give the patient alternatives on the realistic expectation for where they want to go. And I'm huge about showing pictures. That's just something that if my team member goes in there for a consultation and they're not holding that iPad with those before and afters or something while that patient's talking and speaking, I mean, we get them at hello. As soon as they call, I know what this patient's coming in for. Those pictures should be ready by the time the patient comes in. I want to be ready for that patient. I want this patient to understand that I get where they want to go. And then I have the information to give them, to get them as close as possible and realistically speaking to where they want to go. So I think that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, we call those patients Professor Instagram. They've learned everything from Instagram, and fair enough. That's good. it's good that they're exposed to some of the concepts and yeah, but it's our job, I guess, to untangle that in the consultation and sort of, lay it out for them. But I guess the main difference with the USA and here is you guys can really lean into that social media. You can brand, you can market, you can scream about it. So tell us from your perspective, what are you telling your clinics to do? Because we're telling our clinics what not to do. It's almost the polar opposite. But what do you think what do you think doesn't work from a social media strategy perspective?
Wow, that's a very good question. Let me think for a moment. What does not work? Since you said that we're so free, right? We're so free in social media. I mean, heck, I can wake up one morning and post about something that I think is great and I don't even have to think about it. So when you're so free and then you say, what do you think will work? Well, let's see. I think overdoing it will never work. I think, our patients are really, really intelligent. And we're dealing with people who know when you're kind of like trying too hard or when you're keeping it real. So I think in social media, we would not only post treatments that we know that are going to work well, but kind of keep it real without realistic expectations. Sometimes I see some before and afters on social media that really scare me because I'm like, oh my gosh, people are using much more AI also. And that's just a pain in the butt because this patient's going to come back to bite you in the butt when they're not happy about the procedure that you're offering on social media. And when you can't be able to deliver what you said you can, it's hard. It's hard in every portion of life. You can't really just offer things that you really don't have. Then it brings a problem. It creates a problem. So I guess overdoing it on the social media and maybe posting these exaggerations of those before and afters, I think that would be a no-no, not because we cannot do it, but because you really don't want to do everything that you can do. You want to be careful with that. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I don't spend so much time on Instagram these days, but there's a lot of sameness out there. Everyone is kind of seemingly doing the same thing. It's often memes and funny things and talking over memes that they found on TikTok. And it's all very funny and engaging, but it's not necessarily making you as an individual and as an injector stand out. It's all, they've kind of lost their brand, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So how do you brand yourself as an individual who someone would like to come to?
Just going back to the basics, remembering why you're in this industry and that's what you want to show. I try not to be so connected constantly to what everybody else is doing because I found that it dilutes where we're heading. So, and I'm jealous about that. You have to be. So yes, get information and education and train well, but don't get so lost on the fads and the trends. I mean, go back to the basics and focus and project on that social media what you really want your practice to look like. So if you have gotten yourself lost because you're looking at everybody and you feel you're falling so short, because that's what happens when you look at so many other accounts, you feel like you're falling so short and it's not real. I would say to get inspiration from other sources. And then when you project yourself out there and when you show yourself out there in social media, show something with substance. Don't go so cookie cutter like everybody else. So just focus with something that would bring more substance to that patient. I believe that the patient's intelligent enough to be able to distinguish, you're the real deal. You're the real deal.
Yeah. In fact, in next week's podcast that we're publishing, we've got Brooke Carrero on and she does a great job of that. So if you're wondering
that's great.
Yeah, how to have your voice, listen to next week's podcast because she does a great job of it.
Yeah. I think you raised a good point, Marilyn, about being too engaged in social media because I think that it can almost start to program you in a certain way and you stop being able to think originally. You start being influenced by what everyone else is doing and then you start creating the sameness, as you said. I often look at other industries, even though we're doing entirely different things in aesthetics. I look at other brands, other businesses, how they're marketing to their patients, how they're communicating, how they're getting their tone of voice across, how does a brand like Chanel or Rolls-Royce or, and it doesn't,
I like that.
Doesn't have to be even a high-end brand. It could be a brand that's maybe similar to us if you're a middle of the road clinic or maybe you're a high volume clinic, looking at other competitors other businesses that are within your space.
Other businesses.
Getting inspiration from how they communicate to their patients or their customers. So you start to get fresh ideas because this industry is still fairly immature and everyone tends to copy each other. Whereas I think take a break from looking at our industry and work out how you can take inspiration from other businesses that operate that might be attracting a similar clientele or a similar person, but just for different services. And
I like that.
That.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. And you said it beautifully. I mean, we have to look at what really inspires us and not so much what the competition is. And we do it backwards. We have a tendency to just going straight to the competition. Well, let me see what they're doing. And we should be going to what really inspires us. So yes, having said that, I do follow certain accounts that have over 125 clinics around the world. And those are the ones that I'm going to be connected to because I want to see where they're heading. I want to see where the inspiration is, not so much about the competition or the other 3 or 4 that opened around us, not looking at those accounts. I'm looking at something that inspires me and maintains me genuine to what I wanted to project to the patients. That's what's going to make us different.
Yeah, so something I've noticed as well, particularly with injectors, it seems to be a unique thing with our industry is that often injectors' posts more resonate with other injectors than patients. It's almost like they're talking to the wrong crowd because they want to build a following and a reputation. I understand all of that, but they almost lose the tone of voice that this is actually more for injectors because they're teaching how to inject or talking about, how to do a temple filler. And yet patients kind of don't care. They just want to know, are you reputable and do you have the qualification? It's sort of different. So sometimes maybe having a bit more empathy for who are you trying to attract to your clinic rather than just being funny all the time or super educational. Sometimes it's sort of the wrong content.
Totally the wrong content. You said it just like that. It's so true. They're doing it for the gram. There's a saying, right? You're just doing it for the gram. So you're just doing it for the other eyes that might be looking at you and doing it because you want to be a celebrity in this industry. And that's great. But what are you doing really for the patient? Because the bottom line is that we're in this for the patient, right? So what are we really doing to portray that towards the patient? It's just easy to get lost, I would say. It's so easy to get lost. And when everything gets so loud the way it is now, guys, it's very loud in the aesthetics industry. Like we just said, I mean, everywhere you look, right? So it's very easy to get diluted and get lost. And then you don't even know why you started in the first place. You're so lost trying to keep up, right? With the Joneses. And it's not real. It's not real. And when you realize that, the faster you realize it, the freer you are, the easier it would be.
Yeah. And then I kind of wonder about people gauging their success on how many followers they have rather than the quality of who's actually following them or who's engaging with them. Because you don't need 100,000 followers to have a successful business. I mean, how many patients does like an aesthetic practitioner need to have a very successful business?
Wow.
If you're seeing let's say average injector probably sees maybe 5 to 10 patients, maybe 8 to 10 patients a day. Some might do a little more, some might do a little less. And so if you sort of do that over a week, and then a month and a year, like how many of those people do you need? And then do they all need to come from social media? I mean, I kind of, and I've said this heaps of times on the podcast before, every time someone comes in from social media, it's like a blind date. You don't know who's going to turn up because they're new, right? So are we better off focusing on how do we cultivate our retention rate to make sure people keep coming back? And how do we do such a great job that they can't help but tell their family and their friends who they go to because now it's more acceptable to talk about this, right? How do we get more of the same? How do we get more of the same patients? So focusing more inwardly on what we do in our clinics rather than how many people are following us on social media. I think it's a trend that has sort of led a lot of people down what started off as a very good idea, perhaps in a counterintuitive way to what's a quality business for you in the long term.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like a dip if someone comes in from social media, and often they may come for kind of the wrong problem. The wrong reason, because you did something funny, but that's got nothing to do with my skill as an injector.
Nothing to do.
Yeah.
I guess this would be a good question for everybody watching to ask themselves. Let's just say and make pretend that that Instagram or social media, all of a sudden there's a blackout. We don't have it anymore, you guys. It's gone. You don't have it.
Never know.
How many patients, right? How many patients would you have after that blackout? That would be a good question, because it means that you're not going back to the basics enough. You're trying to sustain yourself with something that it's not sustainable. So let's go back to the basics, like we were saying. How much of your business is for word of mouth? How much is it because these patients, how is your retention rate? It has nothing to do with those little memes or all these other things from social media. I'm not saying it's bad. It's amazing. It's great. I mean, I love it as well. I'm saying, how much are we counting only with that? to sustain our businesses, and how much also how much energy are we putting into it? How much energy are we putting to something that we should be focusing on other, streams of getting these patients into the practice and retaining them, not only through that. I think it has to do also with a lot of age, with the age groups. You're going to see a lot of different age groups. We have one practice that their demographics and the ages are very, very young. And they're completely different. Then we have another practice a little bit much more mature. I bet you they're not on Instagram. So those are the patients that are coming based on those word of mouth and other ways of promotions and marketing.
In your clinic, have you worked with like dedicated social media companies to come in and, kind of take care of that? Or do you guys do it in-house? Because
yes,
I sort of work for myself, but within a clinic, and we've tried all sorts of things. And whenever this random company comes in with a cameraman and, someone telling you what to say, I find it the most clunky, awkward, painful experience. I hate it. I don't really enjoy doing it. Sometimes it can work for a specific thing. If you've got a new product, you kind of want to talk about it, but potentially if it's sort of legal. Some things we can't do in Australia. But I don't know. I personally find it awkward. But how do you guys do it in your clinic?
So let me be realistic with you. We've done it. We've done it all. We've had one time a team that came and made it feel very awkward. They were wanting us to kind of like do the scripts and things that it was just not going with the brand. I didn't think it matched. And then also the whole time of content that you have to block for this. We were having to block this whole thing. I mean, you're dealing with, obviously, we don't have actors and actresses and people that are wanting to be out there in the camera. So it would take 1 take and 2 takes and 3 takes and 4 takes. And before you know, it was like an hour. And how many patients were we losing in that hour? So to create content is a lot. We've had that. We've also had a team that came in and knew exactly how our brand was. And I think that was the best time. Actually, I'm considering them getting back with us because they did a great job. And it makes it easy when it's like that. They would prepare the whole month in advance. They would prepare these hours of content heading towards that. And these guys were professional. I mean, they were professionals on doing infomercials. And they created the brand of our practice to be a place of a lot of fun. And we saw this growth coming in because it was not only about the treatments that we were doing, it was also about how you felt when you came over to our practices while the treatments were going on. So that changed the whole dynamic. So we put a lot of and then I noticed that the team was being a lot more of their personality was being into these videos. So I really want to go back to that. So yes, I think we've seen it both ways. Right now, what are we doing right now? Right now, we're handling it in-house, and it's a lot, you guys. Yeah. Whoever has the opportunity to get help on that department, do it because it's a lot.
Agreed.
Yeah. So what advice are you giving to your clients in 2025? I mean, you're obviously doing a lot of keynote speaking. Where do you find you're adding the most value for people as they move forward into this industry that's just, as we said, expanding so quickly and changing so rapidly?
Yeah, so past conferences that I've done have been on problematic patients and how to convert these problematic patients into situations that would be good. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And also a lot of value in building teams. As I said, building good teams that would make sure that they are able to carry that vision with you, along with you, not so much for you. I mean, eventually, but with you. So what would I say on 2025 when something's changing so much, not only here in America, but in all sorts of everywhere? I would say what we started this program with, just stick to the basics. Go back if you got diluted or you got a little confused along the way because so much is going on. Just center and kind of like remember, why did you start this? Why did you really start this to begin with? You started it not only for a little bit of time, you started it to take this until infinity and beyond, right? So go back to those basics, center yourself and turn on that fire again. You are able to turn off all the noise around you and focus and see what was the real reason behind doing this. You'll find out soon enough that there is something bigger that calls you and draws you towards that. And once that fire is on again, then you're just unstoppable. Once that fire is ignited again, you're just doing what you love, and people are being motivated by it or inspired by it. I think it would be the right word, inspired by it. So go back to those basics. Why did you really start this? And turn on that fire again. I think that's what I would say. I think that's the message that I carry everywhere that I go. I want to always end with that. Let's just focus and center. I remember not too long ago reading a statistics of providers they, after these conferences, they come and they feel so secure, they feel so wonderful, they're on top of the world, and then they get that one patient, that one situation, that one bad situation, and they go from 100% to all the way low. They're even questioning themselves: am I in the right industry? Am I really wanting to do this? Should I just go see patients that are in the other type of scenario for the medicine field? And I always try to bring them back. You are in the right industry. You are. The patients that are hard patients are the hard situations are the ones that are really going to make you. And the hard situations are the ones that are going to prove if you're really in the right path. So I would go back to the basics. What's going back to the basics? Why am I really in this? Why am I really in it?
I got a question, Marilyn. You're a busy person, you're jet setting, you're talking, you're running a clinic. Have you found any good life hacks to make you more efficient with your time? Anything that you've found, like an app that automates things, or a better app for a diary, just anything that you can sort of share that makes your life a bit easier? Because we struggle with that all the time.
Yeah. For me personally, now that you ask me personally, I think that my faith has been one that has held me in there. Developing that resilience that we're going to need, whether it's in relationships, I always say it, whether it's in business, whether it's in our job, whether it's in our career, or whatever dreams or goals we have. When life just has a way of turning around and hitting you, you can take a moment, but you need to find it within yourself to be able to get back at it and get back on it. And usually it's just to remind yourself of why are you in it since the beginning. So what's the real point, So going back to that, I also like to take a moment every single morning. I don't usually leave the house. I wish I could say I'm going to the gym and doing all these exercises. That's one thing that I want to do for 2025, but it's not that. However, I am feeding the soul. Every day I like to wake up and just take an hour and a half, at least 2 hours would be my ideal day, and make sure that I center. And make sure that I go back to those basics and that I remember, what things do I have to do, but why am I doing them? There's got to be, otherwise I just fall into this mood of just one thing after another, and everything's so automatic, and all of a sudden it just loses sense. There's just no sense on it. And that's when problems start happening. So what do? I just center. So I speak to a lot of people who say, just have some lemon in the morning and just heat it up. I mean, I think that's great also for the body and for the skin, but we're talking about the soul, and we're talking about something else that you're going to need after the skin looks great. You're going to need that motor to keep you going. So that's what I like to do. Maybe you guys can share something also of what you guys do. I would love to hear.
I'll rate this to the podcast because it's an easy one. We were struggling with communication and booking podcasts, and you're a great example. We obviously had to plan this in advance. So we just found an app called Calendly that allows you to see our availability. Then you can pick and choose. Obviously, if it still doesn't work from our availability, we have to go back to the drawing board. But generally speaking, it's freed up all of that text tennis of back and forth, trying to work out when we're free, when can we do it. It's just a simple app that we've used that's freed up a bit of our time. And also it automates spitting out the Zoom link to you. So once you've found a time and you've booked it, you've got the Zoom link. So no one's messing around saying, hey, how do I join this Zoom? So that's just a simple hack. And I don't know, it probably doesn't work for other businesses. I mean, it's worked for you in your consulting.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. It made a huge difference. As you said, there's so much time wasted with back and forth.
Oh, wow.
Especially when you've got time zone differences, because I'm dealing with people all over the world. I mean, the podcast we are with my private consulting work, I'm talking to people, in the US, in Europe and so on. Everyone's on a different time zone. So that makes it easier as well. So I guess from my perspective, finding automation, AI is both scary, terrifying, and also super cool. So
I love it.
Trying to find ways that you can make your time more efficient. I think recognizing where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are, and potentially finding people who you can work with that have opposing skill sets. So when you're building a team, for example, Marilyn, in my experience, when I was hiring, I was looking for putting together like a team rather than just all goal kickers, because that's not going to work. You need people that are slow and steady. You need people that are super organized, methodical. So in my personal life, I know I'm not naturally a super organized person, which is why, kind of the relationship with Jake and I works really well, because he's super detail orientated and organizes everything. And I'm like kind of last minute, and it kind of, in some ways it must work because we're still here 6 years later.
I still want to strangle him occasionally, but
but it kind of works. And what else? I guess, as you said, like if you're doing something that you love, then that's what gets you through the tough times, because, you know, you always manage to find a way when it's something that you like doing. When you don't like doing something, it's easy to find a million and one excuses why you can't do it or why you shouldn't do it, or just, you know, spend all your time complaining about it. Whereas if the passion's there, then it just becomes easy. You just muddle your way through it, and eventually you come out the other side. But as you said, it's definitely testing for people. Things are moving so quick. It's uncertain, but, you know, being centered with, you know, with what is your why? Are you in the right place? Not trying to make things overly complicated, and surrounding yourself with good people. I found that for me, you know, I think I'm a very average person that has managed to be around really exceptional people, and that's kind of helped me.
I love that.
Because you start to become the average of the people that you spend the most time with. So if you're around people that are smarter, more successful, more driven, you know, people that are funny, that make you feel good, like that all tends.
Oh, yes.
It just tends to like radiate off them, and you pick up some of that, and then you kind of just become like an average.
I believe that.
Yeah. So those are my tips, I think, that work for me.
Yeah. How did you get connected with Felix? You said he's been a mentor with entrepreneurship, and I don't know, what else has he taught you?
Yeah. So I think the beauty about Felix is that he's very accessible. So I known Felix for a very long time now. I think it was an IMCAS. I say AMCAS. You guys say IMCAS.
Yes.
One of the IMCAS through a mutual friend. Her name is Fiona, and she's from Consultant Clinic. And then that's where the connection was. And then we've had an opportunity to have a conversation one time through Instagram, and then we just developed that. We noticed that there was a lot of things that would, you know, bring us together. Felix for me has been an amazing gift of a friend, because he's so accessible. You can really ask him anything, and he's just so real, right? And you always love people like that. And like David was saying, I mean, I like to surround myself when you're constantly giving and giving and giving. I mean, it's okay, you give, but not everybody really can pour into you. So you're very careful to see who you have in your circle, right? So that's kind of how that came about, and that's how I got to know Felix. And then we just developed a good friendship. And he's always been a blessing to me. Yeah.
Great. Now, share with us maybe one of your biggest mistakes, whether it's financial, hiring someone. You mentioned you lost your whole team one day. What was the worst day of your business career in aesthetics, and what did you do about it?
I think that was the worst day of my of anything of my in the career of aesthetics. It was the day that I decided to just no longer and just leave and get that door slammed literally on my face and lose all my staff in one day. That was very hard for me. It made me even question, do I even want to do this anymore? I don't even want to. I don't want anybody to talk to me about aesthetics or clinics or businesses or nothing for the next 58,000 years. It was also embarrassing for me, having to explain to a lot of people that I was no longer, and then questions started asking. And it was a very awkward place for me to go through that. It took me quite some time to be able to go back to those basics and center myself and really see what I wanted to do. What did I want it to really do with my life? And what did I want? What area did I want it to explore? What was going to come out of this? Because when you're in a really dark moment, I mean, thoughts that come to your mind are like, I'm not going to be able to do anything else in my whole entire life. I don't know if you've been into situations like that, but who's ever been into situations like that, my words are really going to hit home, because that's what you think when you go through a situation that just all of a sudden you were not expecting, and something that you built all of a sudden just collapses. Until you come back to your senses, until you remember that, like I said at the beginning, when you have something that calls you, it just pulls you. Then you end up in it. Why? Because it's a calling. It keeps pulling you. So then I decided to start back up from scratch with the same kind of like recipe that is still on the other place. That place is still going, and that's same recipe, and then establishing the same thing. So I did that, and then going from really small again, it started duplicating until now. Now we have two practices that are going strong. We have another one opening internationally, scouting properties right now internationally into that, and we're working on a medical grade product line. We hope it's not only going to be in our clinics, but be in other clinics as well, international. So I think that taught me a lot. I think that taught me to and not be so naive. Know when to say no. Know because usually when you're a giver, Jake, you don't measure how much you give, and that can hurt you and harm you, right? So you learn by those mistakes. So just being a lot more cautious. And one thing being secure, I didn't want to bring anybody else for the second round, that's for sure. So I'm taking everything from scratch and just going with one person.
I don't know if I missed it. Why did they leave? What happened?
So it was, I always say business investment gone wrong, because she was a silent investor. And I ended up doing absolutely everything in the clinic, as I told you guys. And it was, I want to say it was just a friendship that then had a fallout. So I just said, if you really want just to stay with everything, I'll start scratch. It's fine. I want my sanity instead of, all the situation that this is bringing. So That's what happened with that.
Fair enough. Have you been in a similar situation?
What, a traumatic situation?
Well, yes, you have. With
traumatic situation.
$100 million loss. We've done a great episode on that one. Yes.
Yeah. But yes, totally. I've been in very disastrous situations, and takes a long time to rebuild yourself after your world.
A long time, yeah.
You. Yeah, and it really sort of tests you. It tests your resilience, and makes you reassess whether this is what you really should be doing with your life. You find out who your real friends are, and you realize how important.
Oh yeah.
You realize how important real friendships are, and family, and your support network, which I think sometimes can get ignored or abused when you're busy and you're putting everything else before those relationships. So I think it makes you value those things and reassess what's important in your life. So, but I think everyone needs to go through it. I think if you haven't had any disasters, then you probably haven't had the whole human experience yet, because I think it's part of the journey. I think that we're meant to suffer a little bit. I think that we only get stronger through things that don't go right. That's how you kind of become the person that you are, is from your experiences. And if you only experienced up and you haven't experienced downs and had to reevaluate your actions or your thoughts, then you're not really growing. So I think it's part of the journey.
You're not. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so easy to talk about it from the other side already when the healing has gone through. I don't think I would be able to explain it even when I was going through it. And maybe someone listening is just right in the middle of the mess right now, and they're just questioning themselves, or because it could happen. But it's good sometimes to be able to speak without filters, and you can hear it from people who actually went through it. And yes, the loss of the millions, and that's important, and that was catastrophic, really. But I think if we're going to put a measure to it, it was a lot more of that loneliness that you would feel in that spot. Because when things like that happen, you feel that you're alone. This only happens to you. And then that question, am I ever going to be able to get, through this at all? But the answer is you will. You will be able to get through it. And just like, like David said, you're going to get out of this, and you're going to get through, you're going to go through it, and you're going to be able to speak from a place of healing, and it's going to be inspiring for other people. Yeah.
Totally.
Now, I guess final questions. I met a lot of injectors when I was at AMWC a few weeks ago, and many of them are less experienced, or even right at the start of their journey. So what would your top tips be for them if they want to start a business? And I guess, do you even think this is the right time to start a business?
Yeah, I would say hold off a little bit on starting the business yet. I would say get your foot in the door with someone who knows what they're doing, that have the experience, because at least we won't hire with anybody with less than 2 years of experience at least. But I get this question a lot. So I would say they're entering into the industry in an amazing time, very exciting. But I would say put your foot in the door with someone who can give you experience, learn from their experience, and hopefully you don't have to go through all those situations. Unite with people who are open enough to talk to the good, the ugly, and the messy of the aesthetics industry, because as beautiful as it looks, it's hard. It is not easy. Yes, you can do it, but I would say hold off a little bit, and maybe get with someone or with a group of people that would teach you, and that you can learn. It's not all about injecting. It's not all about that technique. It's about a lot of things that we talked about today. It's about who's going to be walking this journey with you. It's about the patient. It's about that consultation. It's about going back to those basics. It's about staying focused. It's about a lot of things. So I would say, what would I say to them? I would say, hold off a little bit, please. Hold on. Not so fast. Yeah.
You got timing in life is everything. And I think that we are going through a transition in the industry, and it is consolidating. So you don't have to have your own business to be successful. Go and join someone else that's already doing it, add to their success. And then
100%.
When the industry stabilizes itself, which it will, because every industry goes through this, then maybe it's time, if you still have the passion to be a business owner, then do it at that point. But why reinvent the wheel? You can help someone else who's already got a successful business, and maybe you decide you don't want to have your own business. That's cool. You can still make great money being someone else's team member and
absolutely
build financial success in other ways. So as Marilyn said, I think now's not the time probably for most people. If you're a daredevil and you want to go for it, then, all the best. I hope it goes well.
Good luck.
Marilyn's pulling a big face here. Don't do it.
Yeah.
They're both saying no.
Yeah. Timing's everything, but
good luck.
Yeah, exactly. So just bide your time, and get your experience up. I mean, I meet some people who are trying to learn business and learn how to inject at the same time. That's a tough one. I think, learning one skill at a time is difficult enough, let alone trying to master two. So
absolutely.
Be patient and
and we're still learning. I think we're learning every day.
Sure. Totally.
Great. Any final questions from your side, David?
No, just thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your passion. I think, one of the things I enjoyed about this conversation was just the energy and the passion, more so than anything else, even though your advice is great. So thank you. And hopefully people enjoyed that. And, stay in touch. If you come to Australia, let us know. I think Jake and I will be probably spending more time abroad in the coming years. So I'm sure that'll include the United States. So we'd love to catch up and stay connected.
Yeah, and we need a formal pathway to direct people who need business advice who are based in the States. So we should speak off air, and maybe we'll leave a link below for people to connect with you, Marilyn.
Yeah, and also,
yes, of course.
Also, do you want to plug your Patreon too?
It's called Mastering the Game, the ugly, the messy of the aesthetics industry.
All right, cool. We'll leave a link.
Mastering the Game.
Well. Check it out, guys. Well, thank you again. And hopefully we connect face to face the next time we see each other.
Gracias. I'm looking forward to that.
All right. See you later. Have a great day, Marilyn.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
For our latest news, follow us on Instagram at Inside Aesthetics Podcast. If you want to get in touch with myself or David, follow us on Instagram as well at Dr. Jake Sloan and David_Inside Aesthetics. Join our Patreon for invaluable business and injectable education. Get access to our global community of like-minded professionals, live and interactive Zoom sessions, hints and tip videos, webinars, and more. Head over to www.insideaesthetics.com/Patreon for more information.